what we're going to do today, I'm Tara Jeffs, and I'm with the MTSS PSRTI project with Technology and Learning's Connection. We're the tech side of your multi-tier support system in the problem-solving team. And we have amazing resources. We wanted to make sure all of you had the opportunity to know that exists, whether for your own family and loved ones or in your professional role, to be able to say, hey, this is an amazing collection of resources people need to know about. So I know that it's very difficult to sit and watch a website going through, so I wanted to make it a little bit more fun and interactive for you as I'm showing you different components of the website. I was going to bring in 6 big monitors and each of you explore the different areas, but I knew that our room was going to be a little small in that regard. So hopefully you can be engaged and flexible enough and be able to get some of the information that you're looking for. I mentioned I'm Tara Jeffs, and I have 2 amazing technology specialists in our loan library here with me today, who literally ship out thousands of devices, and you'll see here what the loan library is all about, but they process those orders and ship them out free of charge to our teachers in the public school system, pre-K to age 22. They're not just to the teachers, to any related service provider that can utilize it in the regard of going to any of the trainings or having the knowledge base needed to use the equipment. And I'll show you that in a minute. So, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
My name is Allie Uzzle. Like Tara said, I work at the Loan Library over in Daytona. I'm Lauren Civerdio, and I work with Allie and Tara.
And share with me, if you will, just are you a parent and a related service provider, parent and advocate? Just share with me who's in our audience.
Parent.
Both?
Special ed advocate.
Good. Provider?
And brother. Parent, and I teach in SPB.
Very good. Thank you. Any?
I'm a parent and a family resource specialist.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any others?
Sibling.
Excellent. Da-da-da. Very good. Others? Roles? Okay. Very good. So as we go through the website, what you should have in your hand is a bingo card. A bingo card. Okay? And as I talk about certain topics in the website, you will cross off or put a big dot. Lauren, she'll need a marker and a wiper to mark that we've called out or utilized that bingo number per se. It's not a number, but it's a word, a topic. And what we have are a few prizes. Not many, but a few. We have 4 books and 2 gift cards. Okay, and they're $5 gift cards to Starbucks. So, all right. So when you get 3 in a row, in any which way, 3 in a row, you yell bingo, and then our wonderful text will check your accuracy, and you will choose a prize. Okay? Questions? Yes, sir.
Can I ask the question, please? So you get, 3 in a row, and then say bingo.
That's right. 3 in a row, so it could go sideways or up and down, and then you yell bingo. Question.
Question. So, since you already talked about Loan Library, can I cross that out?
No. Good question.
Nice try.
Very good. Other questions? All right, let's get started. So this is, the website is actually on the back of your bingo card. If you're going to keep this so that you can always find our website. On the back of the card, I just simply went to the website, and it's the Technology and Learning Connection website. what it shares on that first page is a little bit about us. Who are we? Who's the technology and learning connection piece of it? And we really are a team that looks at and enables to have resources and guidelines to help the Florida standards, assistive technology, accessible educational materials, and universal design for learning become embedded into the PK through 22 school population, okay, into their IEPs, okay? I'm going to slide down here. How many of you know what MTSS is?
Multi-tier service, right, which is used as a delay and denial of evaluations and special ed.
Okay, so multi-tier support services, which is the MTSS part, and the purpose of it is to have a systematic placement in place for eligibility of services. Okay, and it comes into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and it's 3 tiers. The website gives you a very wonderful explanation. I think the most interesting piece of the website. There's lots of information.
When do you cross out on the?
We'll tell you in 1 second. So right now, if you're looking at your card, MTSS is what we're looking at. Yes, perfect, MTSS. And we'll make sure everyone marks their cards. So if you go to, I'm under Home on our webpage, at the bottom it says Myths and Truths about RTI and MTSS. And I'm going to click on that link to show you there are wonderful informational chunks of information that enables you to understand it even more. So that you don't feel that it is necessarily a system that is negative in any sense, so that you can see some of the pieces. So we have a lot of parents in here today. So as we look here, we can see the different ones. It's a fad, that it's the goals and purposes of it, the relationships, and there's even a thought bubble for families' role in the MTSS process. And I think that's really, really important, the family roles in that process. If we don't understand the process, how can we be an engaged, responsible member of that decision making? So that's the important piece. So then when you click on a myth, it reveals the truth. So families cannot be included in RTI, which is response to intervention. If you click on that, it reveals the truth, that families are needed to participate. So this is a real piece of the website, I think, that's sometimes missed because it's at the bottom of the page. And this is the MTSS piece of the website. So make sure you have X'd out MTSS. That's our first cell, our first number or whatever. Okay? Any questions? Okay. We shared a little bit about, we're part of the MTSS system. Now, let's look at who we are. Who is Lauren and Allie, okay? So let's take a peek there. We're going to go over to the Contact Us. I am a regional coordinator for the state of Florida in the Technology and Learning Connections. And what I do is I'm in Region 4, so I'm in blue. So I cover 13 counties across the state, working with local AT specialists, making sure they have the training and the knowledge base to implement assistive technology in the classroom. At the same time, I work with ESE directors and other individuals, service providers, to make sure they understand the importance of universal design for learning. Are you familiar with universal design for learning? Okay.
No.
You're familiar with universal design, right? The curb cuts, the buildings that have elevators, all those things that make everyone's life easier. There's also, through the Center for Applied Special Education Technology, CAST, information. They are the powerhouse that truly developed universal design for learning and how we can make every classroom more accessible for our students. And so that's a piece of it that I shared at the beginning, that we also go in and we make sure it happens. there are 5 of us, 4 now, but there are, that is across the state, 5 regions, and we are making sure that we're in the schools, making sure that everyone understands these terms. In that regard, there are also technology specialists like Allie and Lauren, and they're under the tab at the top as I move over under TLC Technology Specialists, and there's the information there. You can see that we have 4 technology people who pack up all the equipment and ship it out. And so they are literally there to help make sure the equipment is in everyone's hands. As I move across the page to Regional Local AT Specialist or Assistive Technology Specialist, that's also known, you might hear them being called RLATs, R-L-A-T-S, RLATs, or Regional Local AT Specialist, and that should be another thing you want to cross off on your card, RLATs.
Good.
R-L-A-T-S. And the
You already
exciting,
talked about UDL, Universal Design for Learning.
I did.
Okay.
UDL.
Thank you so much. I did not tell you to cross off UDL, because that's important. Thank you so much. So we should have so far,
Cross it.
3.
Wow.
we only had 3 so far. That's a bingo cross? All right. Okay, so we have a bingo. Anybody else with a bingo? 2 bingos? Okay, bring them on up.
Bring that.
Bring up the thing.
Excellent.
You just mentioned UDL.
I did. Excellent. Go pick a prize. Go pick a prize. Oh, almost not in a row, though. Is your,
Did you mention Lone Library?
not yet. I mentioned it 100 times, but I didn't show it to you yet. But that's good listening. All right. So we just marked off RLATs and we got a big bingo. And what the regional local AT specialists do in the state is they service the small and rural districts. And you can see in this map that how they are positioned across the state. Because some of our districts do not have in the district an AT specialist in that district. So what they do is they serve many districts, small and rural districts. So that's the importance of your regional local AT specialist. We mentioned UDL. Okay. Let's go under exploration. Let's do a little exploring. And under this tab, I want to look at, we have categories. We have more about universal design for learning or UDL principles, but we also have some tools here. Let me go into, we have some tools at the bottom of the page. And I want to show you some tools at the bottom of the page on the other ones as well. Under UDL principles, I'm going to dig in here and show you a tool. Under, I think it's, let's look at which one. See if I can find it. What I'm looking at under our engagement under UDL are some resources that are listed that you'll see here. And then I want to show you the assignment calculator. The assignment calculator.
Bingo. We have 3. Wait, no.
Okay, come on up.
I have 1.
Does diagonal count?
Diagonal does count. And we only have a few prizes, so the ones that get to Lauren first.
Yep,
Or
you're
Allie.
good. You're good. If there's anything left.
Yeah, if there. But if not, what good sports? Good listening. Okay.
Yeah, Mom.
I guess I should have made more Starbucks runs, shouldn't I? One of the things that we find that our students have difficulty with is completing assignments because it's overwhelming, and we have a tendency to not get started on these assignments. So underneath the UDL principles, we have expression, engagement, and representation. And under the expression, you will find some tools. And this is the assignment calculator. I just wanted to share with you what this is coming from. This is actually is used at the university level, but it doesn't mean we can't use it. So if I know I have an assignment, when I need to begin the assignment, I would go ahead and put that in, and when it's due, let's pretend it's due on the 23rd, and then I can pick my subject matter, and let's say my subject matter is biology. And I can calculate my schedule, and this calculator lets me know and breaks down every step of the way what I need to do. Okay? It's geared a little more for university, but it still gives you an idea of how to break things down, how to chunk them. And so you can see that, well, if I need to have a thesis statement, or I have to have a problem-solving statement, I should get that in there within that particular day or time frame. So the calculator is a pretty exciting piece of it, helping us, how do we modify? How do we get chunking the information for that assignment so that we can get started? So that's the assignment calculator. Another activity you might be interested in is the dysgraphia activity. Does everyone know what dysgraphia is?
Bingo.
Handwriting.
No, it's no bingo. It is bingo. We don't have any prizes, but that's good.
Oh.
Doesn't mean you aren't a winner. It just means that we haven't gotten to it yet.
It's one of the 3 specific learning disabilities.
It is.
Dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia.
Excellent. And what we have on the website are some tools, and this particular tool is to understand what is dysgraphia a little bit more. Let me get to it. I'm trying to.
But under that, you have touch typing programs for left, right hand, and both hands.
You could, absolutely.
Because right now, I make the parents look up free ones.
Very good. Excellent. Resources. I'm not in resources yet. I'm going to dysgraphia. Sorry. Making me dizzy.
At the bottom.
I think it is too. Thank you. I thought it was at the bottom.
Now, do you give out technology, so like a child with cerebral palsy could have a flat screen keyboard if they don't have the muscle tone to be able to touch the keys?
Yeah, and that comes into when we talk about the loan library, and we'll go into specific details for that, but absolutely. Understanding dysgraphia is a nice little activity here I wanted to share with you, and thank you for pointing that out. I knew it, I couldn't figure out which page it was, but it is the bottom of that exploration page. And so this is sort of a spinner wheel type of thing. And so if we wanted to get a better understanding of dysgraphia and what it is, we could then go through this mini quiz. So orthographic processing, what is that? Okay, well, is that the ability to spatially form, store, and recall words or parts of the words? Is it an accommodation used to support hands when writing? Is it a type of printing system, or is it a computer-based imaging system? Which, if we put A, B, C, or D on that, which would you say it is? A, that's what I would say. And then all we have to do is check it or submit it. And that's correct, you have scored a point. And so, yay, and then we can move through out the quiz. Let's do one more just to give you another idea. Because I know you all love quizzes. Here we go. RTI. Response to intervention can help a student with dysgraphia by providing medical services, creating a 504 plan, providing parent training services, screening for early identification of writing problems.
Last one.
D.
Yeah, I think so too. Excellent. And then we submit. 2 for 2. So that's the dysgraphia activity. Okay, well, since we're in explorations, you might like to look at math tools for students. math is a struggling area for some of our students, and trying to find materials that allow mathematics, the student being able to look at mathematics in both the concrete and the visual spatial aspect of mathematics is very, very difficult at times, and so some of these tools might be helpful. I think what we often forget about in mathematics, it is a language per se, and so our students don't really know the terminology that's often just bounced around the classroom. And I think one of the tools, as you can see here, we have homework helpers, we have math dictionary for kids, we have free calculator, we have Microsoft Math, and then we have some other tools. But I think that the math dictionary is very, very useful for some of our students in understanding the basics of that. So if I click on the math dictionary, see if we can get the Adobe to run. And so if we wanted to look at the words that could tangle us up or we're using that week and maybe approximate is one of those words, then what does it mean? And it gives the definition of that word, and then it also gives us an opportunity to interact and see what it's like, to practice it. So if my number, somebody holler a number to me.
18.
10.
So if we round to the nearest 10, it's 10. If we round to the nearest 100,
100.
it's 0.
Oh, yeah.
And we can set, give me another number.
18.
18.
4.
Round to the nearest 10 would be 20. Round to the nearest 100 would be 0. And so that type of thing. Good? Did somebody yell 4?
4.
Very good. So that's our math tools.
Do they have math charts? Like they used to have, 1 plus 0 is 1, then 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, charts like that?
They do. They do.
Because I require parents to do a math formula book, and I've been trying to get charts, so we've been making them ourselves.
Yeah. So I don't know, I have not seen it listed within these 6 or 8 here, but there are definitely websites with those. Okay, the loan library. That's what we're doing next.
Double bingo.
That's right.
Bingo.
Good. That's
Double
under
bingo.
resources.
We got all 3 of us got.
Very good. That's a triple winner. Under resources on the website are the loan library, and the ATL-UD resource library,
Bingo.
and then we have UDL ideas, and then we have
Bingo.
getting things
got
together. Very
bingo.
good. That one was a full card. I want to share with you the loan library. ATUDL loan library. What it is a teacher, a speech language pathologist, an OT, a PT, anyone that's been to any of our classroom, AT in the classroom trainings, universal design for learning trainings,
Bingo.
anyone in that district, thank you, can come in and become a patron to the loan library.
Double bingo.
A parent cannot come in and be a patron for the loan library, but they certainly can utilize this resource as a tool to talk in the IEP meeting. So if I was on the IEP team and my child or the student I'm working with was struggling in mathematics or struggling with attention or struggling in an area, I could come here and see what we could trial free of charge for 4, 6, or 8 weeks to see if it works. Let me give you a recent example. I was down in Hendry County the other day, and there are watches that provide tasks to reminders that something should be done at a certain time, and I'll show you that in 1 second here. And so it buzzes when the period might be over, or it buzzes to remind the student they're getting ready to go to PE or whatever the case may be. We were working with a 6th grader of building independence and being more self-determined, that type of thing. And the watch we have in the loan library, he was a pretty big guy. Anyway, it was too small for him. So it didn't work for that particular team, but it did give us power to say, okay, we need to look at some of the more adolescent, high school kind of watches, not the smaller kindergarten to fourth grade watches. So that particular IEP team said, okay, is it possible to order something like that? And I said, most certainly, we will certainly put it on our next list. When we have money coming in from Department of Education, we'll put that on that list to order it for the loan library. In the meantime, though, another teacher who was on the IEP team used it for a student in her class, and every time for a student that really would become extremely upset when it was time to move on to the next activity. It truly was a moment for him or her to, it happened to be a little boy, to just become very frazzled and melt down. So they put the watch on him and shared with him what it was going to do, and so they tried it out. And the response for changing activities was from the little boy, the watch buzzed or vibrates, it doesn't make a noise. And the little boy looks down and says, time for reading or whatever, and he goes, guess I better go to reading, and off he goes. So it changed that whole demeanor. Now, what I shared that example is because for one team, it wasn't appropriate yet, because it wasn't the right tool. The tool might be right if we can match the tool features better with that watch that fits better. But for another student, it could be the exact match. That really could be a resource. So what we encourage you to do is to check these out for 4, 6, and 8 weeks to make sure that it's the right tool. Collect data, see where it is successful, see if it's making a difference, not just the fact that he liked it and used it once, and that's the piece there. So as you can see here, AIM or accessible instructional materials. We're looking at things like smart pens, exam readers. If I'm working with my child's IEP team and I ask them about the loan library, who is my AT specialist? Is this something that we know he's not reaching this academic goal? It has to be an academic goal or emotional goal, but it has to be a goal on the IEP. Literally, let's look at this tool, talk about it. Is this something that seems to fit in the educational environment or something that can be utilized elsewhere? And it can't just be the educational environment because we know communication goes across all.
So as an AT specialist, so if you know what your challenge is, but you don't know what kind of assistive technology might help with that, can the specialist help you if you say, hey, like for instance, our daughter has CP, so writing, but if you can't write things down when you're trying to figure out a math problem or something, that's really a challenge.
Right.
But I don't know what.
That is the person, that is the person that you want as a team to talk about the challenge. This is what she's experiencing when she's given this task. And then your AT specialist can then hone in and say, well, these are the things that are available. Are these some things, what are the pieces that are the struggle? What can she do well, and how can we match that for the right device? Absolutely.
I
There you go.
have a question.
Could we look it up? Okay,
Absolutely.
because you can't trust them to do it.
You can certainly look at, this is all on the web free, absolutely. You can look and see what's there, you can do a little bit of research, you can look at other websites, absolutely. In the back.
My issue, my son has CP also, but his communication is our biggest problem, plus the writing. But, so if they use it on the IEP, they said the school can get it. Does it only go to the school? Does it come home? How do you get 2 or you get 1?
Sure. So if it's communication, we like to, everything is within the local district. So if the local district has a policy that they feel, and they should, feel that communication is a skill that's used across all environments, then in their, if they don't, they should have a policy of if the equipment goes home. And so that depends on how the district is utilizing that. And it does take individuals in the classroom and here that say, hey, this is a life skill. If there isn't a policy, we need to establish a policy.
In IDEA laws and regulations, if it's an assistive technology device that should be used at home, they are required to provide it and let you take it home at no cost to you. And if something happens and it breaks, that's still at no cost. I mean, that you didn't go throwing it, you know, that you reasonably took care of it. They won't tell you that. Most of the time, they tell you no and refuse to let you bring it home.
Because that's the problem with, they're using it in school. He's learning it at school, but I don't know what he's doing. So when he comes home now, I just read it on the paper on the IEP, this is what's being done, and then I don't get to practice it at home, and that's why
No.
I'm trying to get that consistency.
You're right on track.
No.
And that's what you need to do, is work with your team to say, okay, what are you doing at school that we need to be doing at home to help build those skills? You're right on track.
Thank you.
The law requires you're supposed to put parent counseling and training on the IEP. So if your child has a lot of related services, you generally plop in a half hour to an hour a month of parent counseling and training, where they're supposed to explain to you, send stuff home, email, text, whatever, and or ditto sheets to say, this is what we're doing, so you practice and do it at home.
Okay.
But they don't do that either. They refuse to put parent counseling and training on the IEPs.
Well, you can ask. You can ask for the training and you can ask for the devices to have it written into the IP for the devices
Right.
to come home. So that way, then that makes it easier for the school to say yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other piece is we've been doing a lot of talking about communication, which is an essential skill. So you can see here on the website the different types of communication devices. So the question of, hey, there's a lot of stuff out there. Is there someone I can work with that will help me match the right tool with my child? That AT specialist or assistive technology specialist is the person. Absolutely. And so you can see they're very simple devices that are known as simple voice output devices. They might have 1 3-minute message, or they can be very dynamic devices that provide multiple cells and multiple things to say. So and everything has a different purpose and a different role depending on the environment. So you definitely want to keep sparking that team to talk about it and making sure that you're a key player to it. Very good. So as you can see the categories, you can see those listed, and there's many, many ideas. Let me get to the watch I was telling you about just to show you. Let me get it down. You can see you might say, well, why on earth is there a stuffed animal reading a story? Again, engagement, universal design for learning. Let me see if I can get to the Occupy watch. Just so if I was looking for a particular tool,
It's really
The
hard
octopus
to
watch?
erase it.
do you,
still have those,
Hard to erase
it would help if I knew how to spell
but I
octopus.
don't know there's double
it.
working.
Erase it.
What?
Why is it harder to erase it?
And there it is, the octopus watch. But and then we also have, just so you know, if you see add to the cart, there is a rating system or reviews. And so I've encouraged the team that looked at that particular watch to put in the review that it's made for a very small wrist. So then another person checking out would realize, hey, that's made for a small wrist. So these are important pieces to the loan library. Any other questions on the loan library?
Do you have Fast Forward? The program Fast Forward?
I do not think so, because I think it was one that.
I requested it in Highlands County in Broward, and they told me they didn't know what it was.
Yeah. Well, that's not unusual, and it should never, again, never, if they're not or haven't heard of things, you are a team. And then it's encouragement, well, you need to talk to somebody who would know what that is. And I mean, so any literacy person would know what Fast Forward is.
And the reason I asked is because the child had phonics issues, and it also works on impulsivity and auditory processing.
So if I wanted to look up Fast Forward, I would go into curriculum supports or software. And so I'm going to software, and I'm going to F, and I do not see. We have probably 3,000 devices and softwares in the library, so I do not see it. I didn't think
Do
you did,
they
'cause
order
it's so
things
individual.
like that if you ask for?
The demand for products, is an excellent question, is again, student driven. So if we have a student that's struggling and it isn't in the loan library, you can make the request and say, we have a student we're working with over in Hendry County that really needs this product. Is this something that can be considered for the loan library? And it definitely goes on the list, and then when the Department of Education and the Bureau of Exceptional Student Services fund us, then we utilize that money to meet those needs for sure.
So would you order something like the Orton Gillingham computer chip? Since our school districts refuse to do Orton Gillingham, now it's on a computer chip. So I'm wondering if that would be a product we can request that you order.
It never hurts to request, never. There are some things I can share with you, and not because of that. There's some things, for example, some of our students with more complex accessing the computer, really difficult ways, and some of the devices that are out there are so individualized and personable. So one is a mouthpiece that has a switch that they place into their mouth. Well, because of the hygienics of that, we did order it for a student to try. They were very, very successful, but because of the hygienics and cleaning of that device, we couldn't really have it in the loan library because it can't go out to other students beyond that. So some things then, within themselves, then we help connect the consumer with the patron. You know, to say, hey, can you help them out?
There's some of these equipment can be paid for through Medicaid as a necessary device.
Yes. And what you want to do before you do that is make sure your team trials the right device, and make sure that you said it yourself, make sure you're trained on it and that you're able to utilize it at home as well, depending on where, you know, the task is happening.
Can I say something?
Sure.
On that issue, in 1995, it's called a tongue touch pad. It was one of the first wireless devices, and I won it for a child in Ellenville School District in New York. She's a C1 quadriplegic. With her tongue, she had 9 buttons and a mouse, and you had to have the dentist had to measure it to fit her mouth, and it was $20,000, and the school district paid for it. So technology like that that's individual and accessible, the school district has to pay.
And any time that you can get an opportunity to trial it, whether through the loan library or through the vendor who's created the product, is the way to go. Definitely give it a try first. Absolutely. You're great questions. Other questions?
Yeah. The school district, I mean, how do you get paid? How do we get approved to do this? I know, I see that you're like in the Pasco County area. How do we, hook into it?
So you would work on, okay, your role in the process is as a parent, I'm assuming? Educator, okay, very good, thank you, because that helps because we all wear different hats. So as an educator in Pasco County, you have 3 main assistive technology specialists, okay? And so you would then, on your website, email them and say, hey, I have a student over here, I think that is struggling, and there's got to be something out there for him or her. And can you help me? Can you tell me what the process is of getting assistive technology? In Pasco, they have a very defined process of how to get them out there to do an observation or a consultation in that regard. And so that starts the ball rolling. And then they can share with you what's available. And then you, now being in this session, say, I know there's an AT library out there. Isn't there anything in the AT library that we could check out and try?
What do you suggest for dyslexia, because it's not identified, you can't teach? Do you have anything that helps?
There are many, many tools, and the question at hand when you're matching technology and tools is what the task, what's involved in the task that the student is really struggling with. Dyslexia comes in such a big umbrella, as you know, which is why it's frustrating at times to make sure that they have the right tools. But what task are you having that child or young adolescent to do that totally can't be done? And is there a way for them to still accomplish the goal at hand?
And then I heard you say, make sure we write into the IEP something that
Word
would allow us to
prediction.
get,
Right.
okay.
Right. Well, the one thing, and those of you who do work closely with the IEP, make sure that you don't put, for example, co-writer universal,
No.
okay? Because co-writer universal may not be around tomorrow. That's how fast our technology is moving. But you could put co-writer universal in the present level of performance and say, Jimmy's using co-writer universal and doing multiple paragraphs and describe how it's helping through, say, word prediction. So then under accommodations and assistive technology, you would write, Jimmy will, depending on the goal, here's an example, write a 3-paragraph essay using word prediction software to develop, his thoughts or ideas on the topic. Yeah.
Do you have it in Pasco? Be selfish. Are you more in middle, elementary, or high? Or do you across the board?
We're pre-K through 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're FAPE 22 also.
Yeah.
Are you guys, is FAST a different, is it connected at all? Is there any?
No, it is different because it comes from a different funding source. But what makes FAST unique is the fact that it truly is for adults and that population as well, not just linked to the schools. And that's real important for some of our individuals with disabilities.
I was going to actually say that because our organization serves adults. So I hear a lot of people talking about their children, and you're going to have access to this great technology. And so what advice would you give for them as they start to age out? That technology doesn't stay with them anymore because this is on loan through your program, which you do. So, what advice would you, I just hear a lot of, what advice would you give to them? Because then if they lose this technology that's some of it's not just necessarily, writing an essay, it's functioning,
Absolutely.
at a higher level of independence, so.
And so that's the power of the transition plan. So for those of you that are working with students that are moving out of high school or 9th grade and on, what you want to do is make sure that transition plan really is that map of where and what the student wishes to do after graduation. And so that's a key way of connecting them with vocational rehab, all the folks here, actually. This is why this is such a wonderful conference, because it Voc Rehab, FAST, some of the community-based services. You say you serve, do you share who are you, like, can you share?
I'm Mark in Fort Myers.
Absolutely. Share with them, I know you
Okay,
well.
Mark is the Associate for Remarkable Citizens. We have a training center for success, a 5-acre campus, 2 residential homes, work enclaves, a lot of vocational and independent living training.
So,
Day training? Day training?
Day training, adult day training program.
Okay.
and so as wonderful as we know LARC is, like, there are really people that will be standing in the middle of Fort Myers and have never heard of it.
Yes.
So that's why we really, really need to help advocate for each other of what's out there and what's available. Absolutely. So these are great questions.
Med waiver?
Yes.
Med waiver?
So both med and private pay. Other questions? They're great questions.
I have my daughter just turned 3, and she's we just did our transition in early steps, we did our evaluation, and the reason I'm in this session is because they did list assistive technology on her IEP. So is that's kind of a blanket statement at that point?
Yes.
Because, we're just starting pre-K, so I know we're kind of bottom, so basically that gives us kind of a little bit of leeway.
Yes.
That was my thought, and I was trying to get a little more information, because I didn't know a lot, like hardly anything about assistive technology, and so now I'm trying to kind of get caught up so that we can be prepared for when she gets into pre-K. So I can speak with that AT specialist or her teacher about that. Okay.
Yeah, you really want to do it as a team because you want to know that's a great example. What what are some of the things that you're going to be building and working on?
Right.
And then say, okay, I really see that she struggles. That, some parents say, which you can't do and shouldn't do, is, oh, she can't do that. What you really mean to say is, I know that she really struggles and we're not at that point yet, right? And so at that, you're gonna really have those candid conversations of, well, what is out there that's gonna help her give those skills needed to get to that point? If that's not a threshold, but a standard threshold, key component that she should reach within her time frame. And there's probably better ways of saying that, but I think everybody knows. Because if you don't go on under and look at the pre-K standards, which there are, then you won't know, oh, she's supposed to know all her colors by the time she walks into class, that type of thing. How do we get her to?
We're kind of in an interesting spot. I actually, I have my BS in elementary education, and I haven't taught in many years, and so I'm kind of a teacher's best/worst parent, because I ask a lot of really in-depth questions. I'm like, okay, so doing things like this, it really kind of helps support, because then I know a lot of things. So if they don't mention it, then I can mention it.
And there's not a good teacher out there that doesn't appreciate that advocacy. Absolutely. Question.
Okay, I went to the site and I'm the AT and UDL loan library. I was wondering, how do I sign in, because it requires a sign in and the username and password. How do I create that?
So you become a patron with the loan library through trainings that happen across the state and through being an assistive technology specialist, or being a speech language pathologist, or someone out in the schools that are working with technology every day. As an educator, you work through your AT specialist. As a parent, you're like, well, geez, what about me as a parent? Then you sit down with your team and say, who is in the county that we can really invite and make sure they're at the table about assistive technology?
You can try FAST too. It's open to the public. Yeah. And then sometimes your therapy centers might have access to some of those online libraries that you can then use.
Absolutely. The one thing you don't want to do is come in with a Dynabox or a code. This software here is what I want my child to use from another organization, and then you're placing it into the classroom without talking with the team and addressing the concerns and the struggles and where that came out of. You know what I mean in that regard? The premise behind it, the problem solving piece of it. That's why we are wrapped into that multi-tiered support system problem solving area.
I homeschool my daughter, and I'm at a private school, which is more like a homeschool model. So we would not have access to this. We'd have to go through our therapist.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on your private school that you're attached to. There are some charter schools. There are some other agreements across the state, and then within the agreement, it states that the public school will provide, through public education funds, will provide that technology. So that it just depends in that regard. But that's when you really want to tap into the recommendation, if it doesn't have that, to tap into some of the other resources out there. Sure.
If you're private, you're not the school that your head sleeps in, you have a right to go to them to have them test and evaluate and give your child an IEP. And then you have access to all of it. And even though they're not in the school, you can request and ask them as a team that you would like these things, and they have to provide them in the home, in the private school.
Yeah, because as a teacher at that institution, I can see where some of my students would really benefit from this. But now I'm like, well, how do I get that for them?
You have to get an IEP. If you call me and talk to me, I'll help you with it. All right?
That is to answer that last statement she asked, and everything has to be IEP based. The answer to that is no. Because literally, that's the whole purpose of universal design for education. That as we work with the schools and get them to realize that a particular software program or a particular device should be at tier 1 or at that general level. For example, Microsoft Office is phenomenal now with their tools that they have built in their learning tools. And so these are things that are built in, universal to everyone. And so those, of course, is where you want to go look at first. You want to see what's available first. Not only, but that's the key, is what is available in the mainstream everyday things that we don't have to
Yeah, because
buy.
I have students that have never been in the school system, they don't have an IEP, they never will.
Right. But they could definitely benefit from some technology. Yeah, definitely. There were, I think, yeah, question?
How long are the loans for?
4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 8 weeks.
Okay.
That's an excellent question. Other questions? Yeah, I'm
Do
sorry.
you work with Gardner at all? Or do you have like a list of things that I can look up for my own children that I might be able to get through the Gardner scholarship?
I don't work with Gardner at all.
Because I don't even know what's out there, so how, you know what I mean?
Right.
Some might be fantastic.
Have you been on scholarship?
Yeah, but I don't know what to look up. You know what I mean? Like, what do you look up?
So if, say for example, you have an individual struggling with reading,
Right.
another big umbrella,
Yes.
right?
Right.
There's a lot of pieces of reading that we can struggle with. But say that it definitely is word recall or word recognition or that piece of it. Then looking, if you Googled, of course, and type in word recognition or word recall and technology, that will come up as well. But we are on the website. At any time, if you had a question, you could easily email me and say, I'm looking for some tools, just some general tools that are out there for a student struggling with this.
Okay.
And that's the field of assistive technology that's so powerful. It's small, but it's an amazing field in regards of experts because we all know each other across the nation. And if I don't know it, I can tap into other resources across the country. So absolutely. Because there are going to be things like, what's your first name?
Linda.
Linda shared. If I don't know fast forward and I'm not aware of it, I just reach out and I say, okay, you guys, tell me what's going on with the fast forward or whatever.
Mine of the homeschool and everything. My child's in Florida virtual school. Do you work with that?
Yes, it is part of our districts that we serve.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Other great questions. Other questions. Okay. We have a few minutes left. Any other thing that you particularly, let me share with you on the website real quick. Get out of the library. The other pieces are, we have virtual meetings, and that's usually for stakeholders across the state, so that doesn't really apply to you. There is a whole page on data tools, because that is an important piece, is collecting data, so you might want to look at that. The equipment kits, on top of the loan library, we have a training called AT in the Classroom for teachers to understand what AT is. And your local AT specialists, your fiddlers, we work very closely with fiddlers. They come in and they can do a school-wide training of what AT in the classroom looks like, and literally then train all the teachers as an open workshop and provide that opportunity for them to get ideas as well. So that's a nice way to go as well. And that's called AT in the Classroom. And then what they do is they check out these wonderful kits that have examples of how you use this particular technology in writing or reading or math or organization. And then the whole district, as far as the teachers signing up, have the opportunity to attend again. And then it also has our calendar of events, which at this point there's nothing happening today, which is not true, but it's usually a pin board. I don't know if I can, let me go back, we probably, here we go. And so you can see that we offered a switch mounting system workshop on what are mounts, what are switches, and how can teachers utilize these. And enable students to really get their full potential of accessing the curriculum and the computer. And so that was a very, very well-received training we did across the state. So that's one of those things. We also do an environmental communication training. That happens, it's in its 5th year. We just finished up the 5th year, and that's teaching teams, teacher, paraprofessionals, speech language pathologists, and that team, how to enable students to have communication opportunities. And they video a baseline, they go in and have an intervention of their typical day, where should we really start giving opportunities, which we know it's everywhere, but some places it's more natural to start some activities for communication, maybe within a small learning activity, a learning center, snack time, those types of things. And then these teams for the whole year come to training, excuse me, and then they document the intervention and the success and the communication that's happening within that child, and it's phenomenal. So that's referred to as ECT, Environmental Communication Training. Question?
Yes, I have a question. My son, he's able to write. He goes to a regular public school. He's actually in the gifted program. My question is this: they evaluated him last year for assistive technology for the keyboard, and he felt that he wrote faster than what he typed. Now we're getting into more writing, and then when it has to do with writing, he tends to count how many he could get wrong and still get a good grade sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah, so what's your take on, because one of his teachers, and I understand, what you don't use, you lose, but at the same time, like, should we really try to get him onto the keyboard and really push that and try to get him to be faster, or do we continue to rely on the writing? It does tire him out. We have to, so it does tire him out. We would rather, his dad and I, we wanted him to get the keyboard right off the bat, but we understand it was a process. So what's your take on that?
So the bottom line is the goal. So if it was, for example, the goal was to write 5 paragraphs within a particular time frame, then that goal specifically then fine-tunes what tools we should be able to use within that. And then your son's strengths and preferences. So, for example, if you put a keyboard in front of me, I'm not good with, I'm not good, so I have a preference, right? Same, he may have a preference of what he likes to use. And there are sometimes, there's more than one way. Some classes he may want to write, some if able, and some classes he may want to type, and some classes he may want to use voice recognition. So you want to be able to provide the right tool in the right environment to give them options, because that's what we all do, right? When we have our cell phones, sometimes we're banging on the keys with our thumbs, and sometimes we're talking into it, and then we need all ways of doing it. So.
With the voice recognition, how true is it that because of spelling has to be deactivated, spelling check has to be deactivated, he has to spell it out letter by letter?
If the goal is to see if he can express his ideas, then that's not a worry. But if the goal is to see if he can formulate the sentences with correct spelling and punctuation, then that tool would have to disable that feature.
Who determines that goal?
Your IEP team, your standards, that whole base of it. Yeah. Very good questions. Other questions? I think we're at that time. But visit the website. As much as I try to, it really is an amazing field. And I am Tara Jeffs in Region 4, so please email me any of your questions. Thank you. Thank you all.
Region 4 Highlands County.
It is.
And the